Okay, so I wanted to kind of break out knowledge articles from the other parts of customer service that we've been talking about for the past couple webinars, strictly because it's got some pretty interesting things in it, and just thought I'd kind of surface some of those again. I did a webinar a few months ago on the Interactive Service Hub. It was for CRM 2016. It's changed a little bit. There's a few more things inside of Dynamics 365, but for the most part, you can watch that webinar and see how the Interactive Service Hub works and things like that. I'm going to, on the show notes, I'll send you a link to that if you don't already have it. I put it in the announcement for this, but I'll go ahead and do it again anyway. So again, my name is Mitch Milam. I'm a Dynamics CRM Architect. You can find me in one of those locations. So as always, if you got any questions or comments or anything else after this, then please drop me a line. Okay. Again, everybody's muted, as you probably know already. And if you want to ask a question, just put it in the question box. Or if you want, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can talk. And as always, just give me your comments and questions as we go along. Oops. Okay. So today we're going to discuss a little bit about configuration. There's a couple of interesting things in there. And then we're going to get into a quick review of the Interactive Service Hub. Like I said, I have a whole webinar on that, so I'm not going to get too deep on it. And then we're going to talk about processes and finally give a demo of a lot of the features here. So the first thing is configuration. So since this is part of customer service, the configuration is actually found under the settings service management area at the bottom. There are two things related to knowledge-based management. And the first is embedded knowledge search, and the second is categories. So embedded knowledge search is actually searching for articles, and categories is the equivalent to subjects within cases, slightly different storage locations. So you could think of subjects for cases is just a way to categorize cases, whereas categories are exactly that for knowledge management. And again, it's just a way to further refine what the knowledge article is about. Now, I guess I probably should start by saying we actually have two knowledge-based systems within Dynamics 365. The first is the KB articles that have existed for as long as I've been working with CRM, since version 3. So those are kind of the old way of doing things. They're pretty restrictive. They have templates and things like that you can start off with, but it's more or less a question and answer type of thing. Knowledge articles is something they pulled out, my understanding, out of the Parature acquisition, and added that because it was more robust. It's got some new features to it that we'll cover in just a few minutes. Overall, it's just a better way of managing articles within your system. So the first thing you do is you tell CRM where you would like to have knowledge-based search enabled. The default is for case, which you can add just about any entity, as you can see from the list here. You're going to see mention of Parature within this system. Parature is not actually sold by Microsoft any longer. They sunsetted that and Dynamics Marketing on November 1st of last year when they came out with Dynamics 365. So even though you still see Parature references in here, that's really not kind of the path to the future. And so what it's asking this second question here is, where would you like the knowledge solution to be stored, inside Dynamics 365 or inside Parature? And the answer is Dynamics 365. We also can enable knowledge management or knowledge acquisition through our portal. As you can see here, I have a portal connected, and this is the Microsoft hosted portal. And what it's showing you is I would like to use the external portal. This is the URL that I'm using. Let's pull that out of the system. It already knew that. And then this is the format for the article number. So what it is URL/KB/ and then the KB number. That's what that stands for. So we'll be covering portals here in a couple more webinars. It's kind of the biggest kind of culmination of all of this stuff. And so we'll be talking about that then. So this is a way for you to actually create knowledge articles that can be surfaced on a website. So this is the first, kind of your first iteration of customer self-service. When we enable knowledge-based search, and you do it per entity with that series of checkboxes, it will actually add a new thing called a knowledge-based search to the form editor, and this is the form editor if you not recognize that. So what it allows me to do is I went and added a new tab at the bottom of the account form, and I can actually add a knowledge-based search into the account form so that I can look up articles and associated with the account. Not sure that's a true scenario, but it does work. It's pretty easy to do. So you enable that feature, then you go edit the form you want, add probably a tab, I would say, and then put the knowledge-based search inside of that tab, and then save and publish, and it's available to your users. Categories are a hierarchical subject tree, just like the subjects that we have within cases. And again, it's just a way to further define information about the knowledge article. So as you can see in the left-hand image there, if you see the little hierarchy, that means that this is actually part of a tree. And you can tell this by opening it up, and you'll see a parent category. So in this one, defects is a child of support. So if I was looking at support, I can see that I have children, and the defects would be one of them. I can see associated categories, and then I can see any knowledge articles that this category has been associated with. So again, CRM, everything's related to everything else. So this gives you a pretty quick view of stuff. So the Interactive Service Hub is kind of an interesting app if you haven't ever played with it. It's found in Dynamics 365. It's found under the settings area. So it's over on the right-hand side. And when you first launch it, it's going to show you a screen like this. And what it's actually doing is downloading the metadata and other configuration items to secure storage on your browser. And this allows the interface to interact much faster. Again, there is a slow startup time, and it will be slow anytime you make changes to your system. So this will affect every single user. So as you go through making modifications stuff, anytime that you change the stuff, it will actually have to re-download the things. Okay, so that's kind of something you have to get used to. This actually uses, it's not the exact same engine as the mobile or tablet client, but it's very close. Same technology. And this is what it looks like. So this is a dashboard with just a series of views here. So we have cases, my resolved cases, my draft emails, and my activities. So this is a default tier 1 dashboard. And you can, of course, change this because it's CRM. Knowledge articles, again, look a little bit different than the KB articles that we have. You can have the major minor version. You can select a language. You can have it in a proposed stage, a review stage, or a published stage, title, keywords, description, and finally the content itself. Over on the right-hand side, you have a timeline. This is the Interactive Service Hub's version of the social pane that's in all the other ones, except for the fact that it's called timeline, and the filtering and organization is a little bit different. It's actually kind of better. We can do many things with articles. So we can assign, we can email a link, we can start one or more processes, create major minor versions, associated category. We can translate if you have a multi-language situation where your company has either users or customers in different languages, and you want to translate the article to a different thing. Again, approve, publish, archive is part of that system. We can delete or send to the trash, and then we can also relate an article, a product, or mark the article as internal. So these are all the things that we can do to an article. Again, the editor that's within the Interactive Service Hub is different than the other parts of CRM. It's used for both email messages within the Interactive Service Hub and also the knowledge article content that we'll be working with today. As you can see, it's got all your standard HTML features from styles to font sizes, bold, underline, all the other stuff that goes with it. And this is actually a much better editor than is built into the normal part of CRM in that iteration. Business process flows work pretty much exactly as they do within the other parts of CRM. They just kind of displayed a little bit differently. The default is just having the bar across the top and not having it collapsed. To see what's inside of it, you actually click on the process stage itself, and it'll pop another box up that will show you your information that you need to complete before you advance to the next stage. And again, this is a standard business process flow that you control through the processes definition itself. You can do cool things on the timeline. So basically, you can delete, close, mark complete, etc. A little bit different than on the social pane. Filtering is also much different. So we can actually group things or sort things by dates. So we have a bunch of predefined dates, or you can create a custom time frame. So this is really handy if you have a lot of activity. This could be either on a case or like we're talking about today on knowledge articles. So if you have a lot of activity that goes with it, it's also handy to do this stuff. And finally, we have some better searching capabilities within the timeline itself. So that's a little bit different than the social pane, but it's also much better. Okay, so when you're working with knowledge articles, you really and truly need to define your processes. So this is no different than any other business process. So the kind of flow you have is you create an article, you review an article, and you publish an article. So you need to define who has those capabilities. And these are all controlled through security roles, of course. So the way that many companies work, like what Microsoft used to do when I worked there first time, was if a support professional found an issue with a product or a situation or whatever it might be that an article did not exist for, they were required to create a new article. And they were actually gold on creating X number of articles per month or quarter, whatever it was. So the idea here is you can use this same principle in your organization. When you hit a new situation that no one has documented, document it. Now, again, it doesn't have to be when the customer's on the phone, or it doesn't have to be immediate, but just have a formal process for adding new knowledge to the system. So if you have a formal process, and again, you can goal people on it or not, but it really helps to be able to define this process, make sure everybody follows it. And the idea here is the more information you can provide the customer or the user, it could be the same, up front, the fewer calls that you'll have. And again, as we've covered before, phone calls are bad, right? So help the user, help the customer, help themselves. And you do that by creating articles that show them how to do things. I know that we all do internet searches to find out how to do stuff, and we find, knowledge articles from Microsoft about everything. Then you need to define the process for review. In most cases, you want to have somebody else than the author review the article, because you don't want things being put out that are either incorrect, which is really bad, or maybe they're not worded properly. Maybe there was a translation issue. Maybe if you translate it and it didn't exactly translate properly into the secondary language you're going for. So whatever it may be, you need to have a formal review process. What you may have is the frontline support person creates the article, and then the tech lead or the manager or whatever it might be actually reviews the article and approves it. And then once it's approved, you publish it. That's what the situation is. And then you can either create articles that are public or internal. So the idea here is you can use the system for your own purposes. So you can have articles within the system that are for customers. And you can have articles within the system that are for you. Microsoft does this themselves. So they will create an article on something and they'll mark it as internal. And the only people who can see it are Microsoft people. So it's kind of really up to you. And sometimes you'll have an internal article, and maybe what they'll do is you're coming up with new versions. So like, for instance, I think they're coming up with the Dynamics 365, the spring release is coming sometime, hopefully soon. And so what we'll do with that is we'll create a whole bunch of articles about how to do things with the new features of the spring release, but we'll mark them as internal until we actually release them. Then we'll go through a final review stage, make sure everything is actually what we said is how it ended up, because as I say, no plan survives contact with reality. So the difference in what we wrote versus what actually got shipped could be major, could be minor, could be nothing at all, but we have to verify that. Once we verify that, we just flip the bit that just says this is an external public article, and now it's available on the internet through our portal. Okay, so again, you could solve, or you could use the same process yourself. The next thing you have to think about is we have the ability to create major versions and minor versions of an article. What denotes which? Okay, do we, if say we came up with a new version, say stick with Dynamics CRM/365, we came up with Dynamics 365, which is version 8.2. Well, do we create a new version it's a major version, or do we create a minor version of the article to match? So it's one of those. Maybe you could keep them in sync. So, things about that, you need to think about things like that, because it just kind of makes your kind of management of those articles kind of really, truly easier. Because one thing about it is, you look through the history of Dynamics CRM. I've been working with it since 2005, so that's quite a period of time. I've gone through 3, 4, 2011, 2013, 2015, 2016, and now 365. That's 7 versions I've gone through. Okay, the stuff that existed for version 3 is, people still use it, believe it or not. I see them every now and then. It's really not relevant. In fact, I did a cleanse of my blog last year before I moved my infinite-x.net. I moved all the content into my XRM Coaches, and I actually went through and moved all of my articles for CRM3 back to a draft status, so they're no longer published, because they were just kind of junking up the site, and quite honestly, I didn't think anybody used them anymore. I think I left some of the 4.0 ones out there. I kind of went through them all, and so I went from, I think, over a couple thousand articles down to just a few hundred. So it was probably over a 50% reduction. I think almost 60% of the articles that I just got rid of because they were just irrelevant again. So the reason I bring this up is because the revision process, you have to build in maintenance into that. So, are we going to sunset or archive an article at a certain point? When does it no longer become relevant? That's the idea. So you need to kind of document that and make sure everybody follows it, because nothing, irritates people more, either support people or customers, than having incorrect information or outdated information that you find, like, people post this all the time. Hey, I found an article on this thing here, but it doesn't work with CRM, like 2016. Well, that's because it's written for 2011 and it's different. So, this happens all the time, especially with code samples. That's kind of the worst one right there. Code samples that worked in one version sometimes just don't work in another version. Okay, again, the portal access. So this is the Microsoft portal that we now have. And as I showed you earlier, it actually is hosted by Microsoft. So you spin it up very much like you would CRM Online. So you connect it to your CRM organization, and you give it a name, and it goes out and generates the site, and it maintains everything. So it's not like the ADX Studio version that we had previously. You're not really in control of the website in this manner. But the cool thing about it is we have content access levels that we can decide who gets to see what. So we have a default access level for everybody. That is automatically applied to all articles, and then from there we can create our own access levels that will allow us to define content access for specific types of people. So, for instance, if we have a premium user, somebody that pays for our service, versus just a registered user, maybe we show the premium user more data than we would a registered user, whatever it might be. So we'll get into the contact access levels here in a minute, but these are all done through the portal. So this is actually built in. It surfaces through the portals is how you get to it, and you control it through an association with a contact, which is a user within the portal product itself. Okay, so let's jump over to the demo here. Before I start, does anybody have any questions on anything I covered? I know that was kind of quick. Nope. Okay. So this is the Interactive Service Hub. I have an article open. We can just go back to articles here. So this is what they look like. This is a standard view. It just looks different. It acts different. It's actually kind of faster. You can define it as you wish, but here's the article number, the title, status, major, minor version, how many views. This is interesting. This is part of the analytics that's built in, when it was modified, and the language that we have. So if we open one of these up, you see the information up there, major, minor version, the language, the status reason there, all the other good stuff. Here's the editor. If you want to make this bigger, we can just click this little box here, and it will put it up. And again, this is a fully functional HTML editor, so much easier to create stuff in, and we can actually add pictures, which are just beautiful because, that's one of the biggest things that people wanted from the other article, the KB article system within CRM, is we need to be able to add screenshots. And we can't do that easily. So what this does is you have to point it to a URL. So you have to upload your image to a website somewhere that's basically hosted so that you can actually pull the image in. So you do that, set the height, the width, etc. How you do that. Other than that, standard editor features, like I said, the sizing, the bold, underline, italics, etc., and then justification, things like that. So this is just a much better environment to work with stuff than before. So again, on the timeline over here, we can see different things. So this is basically, you see I created a new version. So this is actually really cool. It has a major and minor are actually hyperlinks, so I can actually jump between those. Okay, or again, I can filter on dates on specific types of things. If I go to the summary tab, and this one, the interesting thing about the Interactive Service Hub here is we actually have a tabbed environment. So we have content, a summary, and analytics. A summary just shows us information about the status of the article, who created it, when they created it, etc. Over on the related information is all of the things that are related to this. So this is another tab series, except these tabs are actually vertical instead of horizontal. So we have related versions. As you can see, I have three. I have 1.0, 1.1, and 2.0 that I'm on now. I can also see translation. So if we've translated this into a different language, categories, I can assign those here, which you do just by selecting that. Okay, delivery issues. Other articles that would help me reference this in case it's useful to people. Do I have a product? Do I have any products in here? Do I? Oh yeah, there we go. Cashmere coat. How about that? And again, this is just used to narrow down the search. And then finally, here's the content access level. So let's just say that this one is going to be restricted to premium users. Okay, and again, what this means is anybody who is searching for articles from the portal will only see the articles if they're logged in and if they are a premium user. If they're not logged in or they are not a premium user, they won't see this article. Again, the business process flow is very similar, except for the fact I have to click on it to pop the box up. So as you can see, I have to put a subject, a primary author, and mark it ready for review. I can review it here. And finally, I can publish it and make sure, okay, I've got this set of product association. I can mark that as complete. I can set an expiration date. This is really cool. Like I do this on my blog articles now. So like what I'll do for like this webinar. So I'll have an article saying, hey, the webinar is coming up. Well, after today, that notice is totally irrelevant because it's passed. So I've got a little plugin for WordPress that allows me to actually expire an article given a certain date and time. And that's what I do. So I'll go and set it for like today at like 6 or whatever, 6 p.m. My time. And so what it'll do is actually expire. You can do the same thing here. So again, the scenario we were talking about earlier where we have a new version coming out, maybe an article is not going to be valid after a specific date when that new version is released. We can go and set that. Okay, and then we'll automatically expire it and move it to an archive state upon that date. So that's really cool. And again, we can change processes. We can email it, assign it, all the other good things we talked about earlier. Okay, and again, mark as internals down here. Okay, now let's go over to analytics. So what this will do is it will actually allow me to, see if it works, probably not, see the number of times this article was viewed. If we have any ratings put in, we can actually see those here. So these are calculated summary fields, as you can see. And then at the bottom, we'll have the actual historical views for the number of views and any feedback that people have left. So again, this is a way for you to actually see how people are rating or looking at this article. So again, if you're getting bad ratings, maybe the article is not written well, maybe it's unclear, maybe it does not solve a problem. And remember, the purpose of an article is to solve a problem to prevent a support case from being opened. That's the idea. So that's what your goal should be. Anytime you create an article, it's not just create an article, it needs to be create an article that does something. So this is good. Any cases that we've actually used this with. So whenever we have a case, my buddy Larry there opened a case just to see if he could do it from webinar 2 webinars ago. And yes, Larry, it worked. So basically, I can go in there, case relationships. Here is my knowledge article. So any articles that I've associated with this, here, you're not. I can actually see what's been associated with this. So other cases and stuff like that. But the general idea here is when we use the related stuff, it just gives us more analytics for what we're working on, so we can see what people are saying about it. Is it being referenced pretty quick? And then that kind of the general idea behind the view count is articles that are being viewed on a frequent basis. One way that I would take that is if you have a lot of people opening or looking at a specific article, then maybe your product is not clear. Okay, so maybe you need to do something with that specific feature to make it either more easily understandable, or maybe it's a redesign. You never can tell. But the support department can give this data to product development or for whatever it might be. Say, look, we've had 4,000 people read this article in the past 6 months. So maybe there's a problem there, because maybe that's excessive. Okay. Or maybe people just want to know more information about that. So maybe if they're viewing this article a lot, either there's something, again, this could be a documentation issue. Maybe this needs to be in the documentation better, or maybe this is fine. Again, it's really going to depend on your situation. Okay, so let me go to contacts and open up Jim here. And this is what a contact looks like within the Interactive Service Hub. So over here we have cases, entitlements, content access levels. So I'm going to put Jim as a premium user. Okay, so the next time that Jim logs into the system, he's going to be able to see that premium article that we created on the cashmere coat. Okay, but the default is not. So he can do it like that. Okay, so that's a really cool feature. Again, if you have a need to differentiate the knowledge you share with people based on their access level to the system. Again, that could be internal people or external people, but they have to be a contact because, again, it's only through the portal. I can't show the portal today because I've got some funky stuff going on with my version, so we're going to have to wait till the portal webinar, so I apologize for that, but I will cover that whenever we get into the portal. Okay? So that's pretty much a really quick overview of knowledge articles within the system. What questions do you guys have today? Anything? Don't speak all at once. So you can either type it in or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Oh, there's Kurt. Kurt raised his hand. Hey, Kurt, you want to ask a question? You said which portal are you using? It's the Microsoft portal. So yeah, so it's the actual Microsoft portal because you can't buy the ADX portal anymore. Julie asked, how does the user access the portals? They're actually access the articles. They're actually accessed. A CRM user just goes like what I've been doing. It just goes straight to knowledge articles, and there they are. A portal user, which is a contact, has to search for them through the website. Yeah, Kurt. So yeah, the portal I have is the one through Dynamics 365. Yep. And again, that's just called the Microsoft portal is what it is. Okay. So again, you can create articles for internal people. That's just shown here, and that this level of access is controlled through a security role. Or again, if you have end customers, or Employee self-service is one of the things we've been doing for a long time with CRM. You can have them access it via the portal themselves where they log in. They may not log into the CRM. Maybe the employee self-service is only looking at knowledge articles, so they're only looking for help or opening support cases or whatever. They don't actually log into CRM. They're not a CRM user, but they're accessing CRM data. So that's what they call the employee self-service. So that's quite frequent. So what happens is you create articles within CRM, you expose them via a portal that only the employees have access to, and at that point they're just kind of like an internal customer. Yeah, Kurt, there are 4 of them. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're all the same as far as the articles go. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, if anything comes up, let me know. And then I think can't remember what the next one is. The second session from now, and again, I have to kind of do this week to week because my schedule is really fluid, quite honestly, right now. So I can't schedule them out in advance because I don't want to disappoint somebody. But anyway, 2 sessions from now, I think we got one topic in between this and portals. So the last one will be how to configure a portal and set that up. So that'll be a lot of fun. It's not as complicated as it used to be because again they've taken much of the work out of our hands, and so there are some restrictions with that which we'll cover, but we'll have to do that, and that may be a longer session than normal. So let me see how long it comes up, and what I may do is I may have to extend it just the duration for a while. Okay, well, if that is it, then I really appreciate everybody coming today. And